So this week is Yom HaAtzmaut. This week is Israel Independence Day. So even though actually the Hebrew date I believe is Hey Iyar, which is, I think it was the English I think was May 14th, 1948, which was on Hey Iyar, the 5th day of the month of Iyar. I think actually on the Hebrew calendar, Hey Iyar is Friday. But in Israel, when Hey Iyar falls out on Friday, they move up the celebration until Thursday, i.e. Wednesday night, Thursday, because it's a tremendous celebration there, and in order to avoid desecration of Shabbos, so they want to make sure all the festivities are over. So strictly speaking, Hey Iyar is Friday, which is a discussion in its own right. Those in Chutz La'aretz, those outside the land of Israel, when is the appropriate day to celebrate? So some say, well, we don't have that issue here. We don't have that same type of celebration. Maybe we had some things in davening and we have a little party, but it's not like it's going on in Israel, therefore we should keep Hey Iyar. Others say no, that we're celebrating that we have the state of Israel and the land of Israel, so it doesn't make sense to celebrate a different day than all the people in it. So the different custom, it seems that here it looks like it, I think in most places in Chutz La'aretz, it seems to be they're going to celebrate Yom HaAtzmaut on Thursday, i.e. Wednesday night. So, but strictly speaking, I think Hey Iyar is not until Thursday night / Friday. So as well in Israel, and as well I think we're having something here as well, the day before Israel Independence Day is Yom HaZikaron, is Remembrance Day. And that's the day we remember all the Jewish soldiers, and not just the soldiers, men, women, children, all the people who have given up their life in order to protect and live in the land of Israel. And they have a big Yom HaZikaron, memorial Remembrance Day, the night before. So I think in Chutz La'aretz, and here I think we do it like Wednesday night, but the chief rabbinate set up the day before we observe Israel Independence Day, we have Remembrance Day. So why is it that the chief rabbinate set up Yom HaZikaron, Remembrance Day, the day right before Israel Independence Day? And that's because the basic Jewish principle that comes up all the time is the power of contrast. That to fully appreciate anything in life, you have to know what the other side is, and you got to know what the opposite is. In other words, to fully appreciate light, you have to know what darkness is. If you went through Makas Choshech, if you went through the plague of darkness, where it wasn't just dark physically, you couldn't move. Maybe it's like being in the hole in Alcatraz before they closed it down in 19... So then you walk out, you see light, so then you have a full appreciation. Someone who was once blind, and now they could see, that's a totally different appreciation. Someone who couldn't walk, and now they walk. So we see, and in fact that's what we do. We just celebrated Pesach. It feels like months ago, but I guess it was only like a week or two ago. And how did we begin the Seder? So the Gemara tells us the night of Pesach we have the Matchil Begenus. We begin with the shame of the Jewish people, Umisayim B'Shvach, and we end with the praise. What it means is what does it mean we begin with the shame? Either that the Jews were slaves in the land of Egypt, Avadim Hayinu Paro B'Mitzrayim, or B'Tchilas Ovdei Avodah Zarah, our ancestors were idol worshippers. Different opinions, Rav and Shmuel, on what is the shame. And then you get to the good stuff, we discuss our freedom. So the obvious question is, we have other fast days, other days where we remember the sad times. Pesach's a happy yontiv, it's a happy occasion, we're celebrating our freedom. Let's get straight to the good stuff. Why are you spending all this time on how terrible it was for the Jews in Egypt, how they were punished, tortured? And the answer is the same, as the Maharal others point out, is It's the power of contrast. To fully appreciate freedom, you have to know what slavery is. And that's why, first we have a mitzvah on the night of Pesach, we have to relive. It's not that we're just remembering an event from thousands of years ago, but we have a mitzvah to feel like we ourselves are leaving Egypt. And therefore, that's why the Sfardim act out, they do a lot of different things in order to try to, get the feeling that we're actually going through Egypt, going back to Egypt and going free. That's why people throw stuff, during the Makkah, when we do many experiential things, because we want to try to feel it. So that's what the chief rabbi had in mind, that when they set up Yom HaAtzmaut, Israel Independence Day, they didn't forget the power of contrast. They first instituted the Yom HaZikaron. In fact, on the last week, will be a week before, is always is Yom HaShoah. Is we have a different type of Remembrance Day. It's Holocaust Remembrance Day. And that also was a whole discussion in terms of, number one, some people have issues picking the day which was picked, one of the days in the month of Nisan. Some say because you should go back to Tisha B'Av covers all tragedies. Others say, it was such an enormous amount of Jews killed, it warrants its own day. Different discussions about what day it should be, but on the day it should be, interesting is that when originally the Israeli rabbinate picked one of the minor fast days, it was the 10th day of Tevis, they picked as a day that we should remember all the people who lost loved ones. And in fact, I think that's the day they'd say someone who lost someone during the Holocaust, that's like their yortzeit. They made an artificial date, that's when you should say Kaddish. So that was the original suggestion of the Israeli rabbinate, but many secular Israelis did not like that. They said, we're not taking the 10th of Tevis, nothing happened on that day, let's pick the day, actually I think it was what was the English date, April 19th of Yom HaShoah this year? Mm-hmm. So actually came out the English date April 19th, and it was 1943 maybe, I'm going to forget the exact year, when the Warsaw Ghetto, what year was it?
It was 44?
Either 43, 44, around one of those years, but basically that was the year on the English date, April 19th, 1943, 44, that was the date of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. And so they wanted, Yom HaShoah V'Agura, they wanted to show that was the day, that represents the Jewish people fighting back, not going, so to speak, like sheep to the slaughter. They had the major Warsaw Ghetto uprising. So they wanted to pick that date that's the day that we should pick as Yom HaShoah.
But they didn't.
I know, I'll tell you why not. So, but that.
I know why not.
But so the question is, so when was the Hebrew date that year? The Hebrew date of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. The Hebrew day was the 15th day of the month of Nisan, which is the holiday of Pesach. It was Leil Seder. It was the first night of the Passover Seder. It wasn't coincidental. The Nazis did that all the time. They knew that on Passover, all Jewish holidays, people get together. They're more likely to find everyone, all the family, the grandparents, the parents, the children, the grandkids. They specifically waited for days on the Jewish calendar to attack. So it's not coincidental that the day that they picked was the day of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising, which happened to be the night of Pesach. So everyone agreed it didn't make any sense. You can't have half the Jews observing Holocaust Remembrance Day and half the Jews celebrating Pesach. It doesn't make any sense. So they compromised on a date. So really, the day we have, nothing specific happened. Obviously, it didn't take one day. It took many years, but nothing specific at all happened on the day we observe Yom HaShoah. It was a compromise date between the Warsaw Ghetto uprising and Israel in the, because we picked Yom HaShoah came after we had the state of Israel already Obviously, we didn't get the state of Israel until 48. But when we did, when I'm not sure what was the first year of the Yom HaShoah. You know what when was the first year? I'm not sure, but it was after. It's probably in the 50s. I don't know, or
I thought it was later than that.
late 60s maybe.
I think it was after Israel was declared.
Okay, yeah.
I think it was like 67.
You mean after not 48, but 67?
Yeah. I think, I'm not sure.
Yeah. So
the Warsaw Ghetto was August 1st, 1944.
Well, I guess the different dates when they claim it have. That's what you had here also. I mean, I guess it's a question on what day it started. I guess what do you mean by the war? I guess which date do you consider that's the date it started? You're saying?
Yeah. Well, the Warsaw.
1953 was the first
53
year of Yom HaShoah.
Oh, Yom 53.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's.
I knew it was late. I knew it was much later.
Yeah. So at that point, right. So therefore, they wanted to pick a date in between Israel Independence Day and the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. So they compromised on this date of, and therefore, so therefore, whether you make everyone happy, no one happy, but that's the date they picked. And the bottom line, whatever date it's going to be, we could discuss from here to tomorrow what date it should be. And there are Jews around the world who we included in our lamentations on Tisha B'Av, let's say the secular Jews and Israel has accepted it as the date. So it doesn't matter if it should be the date. That date is accepted. So then, if you want, it's another question specifically excluding yourself from that day once it's here. Obviously, if you live in a community where everyone's separate, and so it's not an issue. But if you live in a community where you have Orthodox, conservative, all people mixed together, so obviously then, once that date's picked, so therefore, how does it look now? I'm not observing Yom HaShoah, it doesn't make any sense to a secular. So obviously, once you have it, whether you like that day or not, again, the problem was turning it into a fast day, doing other things. I mean, we do Yom HaShoah, you can do any day. All you do is you get a speaker, you talk about the Shoah. It's not like anything's happening. All you're having is, you have maybe, some people like candles, but there's nothing. In terms of that, it's not like you're
nothing rabbinic.
Exactly, you're not making there's no legal, you're not making a fast day out of anything. Maybe they don't like the fact that you're doing something sad on Nisan, but we have mourning on Nisan, we have other things. It's not like,
I think it was important that they said that they wanted it after Pesach because they felt that it was important to have it during the counting of the Omer. I think that was something that they thought was important.
That could be.
And that works out because it's usually right in between.
Exactly. And in fact, because we have mourning during. I mean, we're in Nisan, and now we have mourning anyway in terms of not getting married during this time. Now we're in Iyar, but we had it in Nisan. Not getting married, not taking haircuts, shaving. Discussion what type of music. So we do have that mourning anyway. So in terms of that, so that's a separate discussion in terms of all the different issues, but that's how the date came about when Israel picked it. First, it started off the 10th of Tavis, and then Warsaw Ghetto, and from the secular point of view, that was the roots of the Warsaw Ghetto uprising. Represents the strength, and therefore, we got the state of Israel. So either way, we had Yom HaShoah was last week. This week we go from Yom HaZikaron, Remembrance Day, to Israel Independence Day, and we see the power of contrast. So we see it also in davening when we over Pesach, when we make the bracha for we have Tfilas Geshem, but that's in Sukkot. We pray for rain. Now we pray for Tal, for the dew, and in the blessing we do a Musaf. So when the cantor is praying, so we do L'chaim v'lo l'maves. And then it's always a bracha, below a blessing, and not for curse. So anything in life is neutral. It's what you do with it. So we say the water should be l'chaim, for life, and not for death. And you can have terrible tragedies with water as well. So in fact, that's a discussion in terms of the concept of l'chaim. Where did that come from? I mean, the concept, the universal custom we have, whether we do it on Shabbos, Yontiv, at weddings, at any happy occasion, we make a l'chaim. Schnapps, wine. People have their drinks of their choice. So where does that come from? Where does the concept of l'chaim come from? So what are we're contrasting l'chaim alola mavis, but what's the contrast? So the different schools of thought. So I'll give you 5 schools of thoughts on where the basis, where the history of l'chaim comes from. So number 1 is, you've probably seen it in the movies, on TV, that you saw when people take the drink, they say they take the glasses, they hit them against one another, they make a toast or whatever they're doing. So what's the concept of hitting glasses together? So some point out, because back in the day, that's what used to kill your enemy. In other words, so therefore, a person used to put poison in the drink and used to give your quote-unquote friend, enemy, the drink, and he'd drink the poison, he would die. So people were aware of that. So the concept of, we hit our glasses together, and therefore some of your schnapps goes into mine and some of mine goes into yours, and then you wait to see if the other person's drinking, and you assume he's not suicidal. So therefore, so that's what the concept. So they drank lamavis when they used to hit. They hit the glasses. That was before they hit the glasses. They used to poison themselves. And we're drinking l'chaim. We're drinking to life. So it's l'chaim below lamavis. Some say it relates to that. Someone else mentioned something else to me he said there was another one. He says that because l'chaim is life, we have different senses. So we obviously have the taste, we're going to be drinking it. We have the eyes, we're seeing it. And so we're hitting this, we have the hearing. And the other one is the smell, so we want to get all 4 senses and say l'chaim. But either way, so we say l'chaim, we're drinking for life and not for poison. That's one school of thought. Another school of thought is as follows. We're familiar with the prohibition of, and we just read this past week, Parsha Shmini, the Torah goes through all the prohibitions of kosher and the kosher animals, chew its cud and split hooves, the fish, it has to have fins and scales, the animals, it gives a list of the birds of prey, those aren't kosher, so it goes through the whole different list. So in addition, and then we know, in addition, we can't have milk and meat together as well. And then, in addition, we have a custom of not even having fish and meat together. So we know milk and meat, the Torah says, that's biblical. It says 3 times in the Torah not to cook meat and milk together. However, meat and fish, that was a custom not to have it. What's the basis of the custom? So the Gemara tells us one who cooks meat and fish together, it's going to lead to danger. In other words, the Gemara says it calls it davar acher. It doesn't even tell you what it is. It says if you cook fish and meat together and eat it, you're putting yourself in doubtful danger. You're putting yourself in danger. And and it's so bad they didn't even want to tell us. Like when we talk about the World Trade Center, we don't say, what happened? These people, they blew the planes into the building. The buildings. We did say 9/11. It's so terrible what happened. We can't even go into details. So similarly here, it's saying fish and meat caused so much damage. We're not even going to say what it is. Rashi writes it's leprosy, which is also this week's parasha, Mitzorah. But they point out so there's some type of danger of having fish and meat together. So that's a discussion today, whether the medical science doesn't know anything dangerous about fish and meat together. There are many non-Jews, I'm sure, and many Jews for that matter, who eat fish and meat together and they're not dying from it. So it's a discussion today whether this prohibition still applies. The Magen Avram, one of the classical commentators on Shulchan Aruch, on the Code of Jewish Law, he says it doesn't apply anymore. Obviously we see there's no danger, and Maimonides, who was a doctor, left it out of his book. So according to So according to some, this prohibition doesn't apply anymore. But yet, nevertheless, the Shulchan Aruch still brings it down. So the custom is we are still strict on it. But even though it's going to some, the danger is not really there. And in fact, you find two schools of thought, because we know, in terms of how serious we take this prohibition of fish and meat today. The custom is not to have fish and meat, and we even wash off our plates, our forks. Like we have the gefilte fish, they change plates and forks. But there's a discussion. We know there's halacha. Let's say a little milk falls into the chicken soup. So if it's 60 times, if there's so much more chicken soup than milk, you can't go in and say, you know what, I like the way chicken soup tastes with milk in it. You can't pour in even a little bit, even if it tastes bad. That you can't do. But if by accident milk falls into the chicken soup, so then the principle of nullification works, and therefore it's 100% kosher. The question is, what about if a little piece of fish, you're cooking the roast, you're cooking the meat, chicken soup, whatever, and a drop of fish falls into the pot. So what's the story? So some say, well, eating fish and meat together is only a custom. So it's only a custom, we could be lenient, and therefore it should be no less than of milk. We're not going to treat it more stringently than milk and meat. So since it's a custom, it's okay. It's okay to eat the chicken soup, eat the roast, whatever it might be. And others say, are you kidding me? We have a principle, chamira sakanta meisura. We're more strict when it comes to danger than when it comes to something which is prohibited. And let's say, in general, because when it comes to kosher, we apply the rules of nullification. But when it comes to danger, if I think a drop of poison fell into the soup, I don't say, okay, don't worry about it, I'm not going to eat it. So it's stricter when it comes to one's physical health. We're stricter when it comes to one's health than we are when it comes to something which is just a religious prohibition. So therefore, we don't say if a little fish falls into your meat, it's a potential danger. We say you can't eat it, throw it out. Those, and in fact, today there's this sauce they put on meat, Worcestershire, what is it? What's it called?
Worcestershire.
Worcestershire sauce?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has some fish in it. So actually, I think now they might say COR fish, but at one point there wasn't, and OU wasn't. And I spoke, because it was funny actually, because someone here, actually I think, Josh Jackson, if you remember, he actually was years ago. He was here, I guess he was barbecuing, and he came over to me and said, I have this sauce here which has fish in it, but it just says like COR on it or whatever. It didn't say it has anchovies in it. Could I put it on my steak or whatever he was making? So actually it was funny. I was actually saying, well, actually I'm going to the COR office tomorrow. I'll ask them what their opinion is, but I'll tell you what I think. So I'll tell you it goes like this. There's a dispute, as we just mentioned, between the Shach and the Taz. Number one is, so if it's less than 60 times, that's what it probably is. The fish, the anchovies in the sauce is probably, the Worcestershire, whatever that sauce is called, is probably less than 60 times of the, if it's more than 60 times, then it's more of an issue. But if it's less than 60 times, number one, according to the Shach, we say we apply the principle of nullification. And even if the Taz is right, that we say no nullification because it's danger, perhaps the Magen Avram is right, that we're not worried at all today. It's not really dangerous, say, having fish and meat. So it's a double doubt, and therefore we could be lenient. That's what the OU's policy was. That I think they might have changed, and now they might have OU fish on it. But that's why originally they didn't have it, because number one, it's a question whether you have to be strict if the fish is less than 60 times. And even if you do, maybe we go like the Magen Avram, that we don't have to worry about it. So the double doubt, so I told him he could be lenient at that time. So therefore, we don't understand whatever the danger is, but there was some type of danger having fish and meat, even though today it doesn't seem like there is, but we're strict anyway, we don't have fish and meat together. So they point out, so what do you do when you have fish and meat if a typical Friday, a traditional Friday night meal, many people have a gefilte fish, then the chicken soup, then the meat. So what do people do? So therefore, number one, so after you have the fish, so you have a fork and plate, so you either wash them off or you take them away. Anyway, it's an appetizer, you take it away and have another plate. And there's something called the middle waters. We know this, before we eat bread, we wash our hands. And I don't know if you're familiar, and you remember at my house, after the meal, there's mayim achronim, we wash our hands after, that's to get the salt. There was a certain salt that the danger was you'd like touch your eye and go blind. So either whatever it is, but that's mayim achronim. And there's something called the middle waters. If you're having in the same meal fish and meat, so you wash your hands, you have to go wash your hands between the fish and the meat. In addition to washing your hands, you should have like a piece of bread, challah, and have a schnapps. The custom was to have a little schnapps in between. That's what the concept. You had a schnapps in between the fish and the meat. So you used to say, l'chaim, I'm breaking up. I'm not eating fish and meat together. I'm going to live. I'm doing something healthy. L'chaim, in contrast to going from the fish right into the meat and putting yourself in danger. That's the second school of thought where the practice of l'chaim comes from. The first one was the hitting of the glasses with the poison. The second one is the separation of fish and meat. The third one is, and if you ever been near Svardim on Shabbos or any other time, they're always screaming out when you make kiddush in the morning, before Boer Priyagafen, they're screaming out l'chaim. What's this with the l'chaim on our Shabbos kiddush? Like, why do they scream out l'chaim all the time, Svardim? So what happened was, in theory, thank you. So in theory, Adam and Eve are supposed to live forever, but they sinned. They ate from the Eitz Hadas, the tree of knowledge, and therefore they were given, the punishment of death. They're not going to live forever. They're going to be like everyone else. There's going to be a time when the time is up. So what was that tree that they ate from? So the different schools of thought in Judaism. Other religions say it's the apple. Judaism says it definitely wasn't the apple. It was either, one opinion is, it was the esrog tree. That the esrog that, we have on Sukkot, that we have when we carry the 4 species, we have the lulav of the esrog. And in fact, it's an interesting custom based on this, that there's a custom for some people make jam and jelly out of the esrog. It looks like a lemon, as I say, it looks like a lemon, but in Metro, a lemon is 3 for $1. An esrog could be anywhere from $50 to 1,000 shkalim if you saw the movie Ushpizin, or 500, whatever. It could be $100. So it looks like a lemon, but it ain't a lemon. You hope it's not a lemon anyway. If you're buying an esrog, you're hoping to get an esrog. So either way, so there's a tradition that was the tree. So there's a tradition of eating from the esrog after Pesach, after Sukkot, and especially a special custom for pregnant women. Women who are pregnant, either folk, or they take a bite out of the esrog, or they just have the jam. Why specifically pregnant women? Because why is there the pain of pregnancy? Because of Chava, because of Eve, because she messed up. And the Torah said, because you ate from the Eitz Hadas, you're going to get the pain of childbirth. So a woman's, an assumption here is that she ate from the esrog tree. So the woman's saying, God, look, the whole Sukkot, I'm dying to eat from this esrog, but since it's the holiday, I can't eat from it. Right after Sukkot is over, I take a bite of the esrog to show, look, God, if I was in the Garden of Eden, because there's a tradition that there was no difference between the trees in the Garden of Eden and all the other trees. The only thing that God said not to eat it. So the woman says, look, I waited the whole Sukkot, so therefore if I was there, I wouldn't have ate from it, so take it easy on me on childbirth. That's where the custom comes from. So either way, but another opinion is it was grapes. From the vineyard, it was grapes. So therefore, So that's what the custom is, that when Adam and Chava, they ate from grapes, they had the wine, that was Lamavis. They brought death upon the world. When we drink wine or schnapps, because one opinion was wheat also, when we drink wine or schnapps, we say l'chaim, we're drinking this l'chaim, not like Adam and Chava, who had a Lamavis. That's the third school of thought, in terms of why we say l'chaim. And again, the contrast, l'chaim, we're drinking it for life, in contrast to Adam and Eve, who were in the Garden of Eden, and they drank it, they brought death upon the world. A fourth explanation is as follows. A fourth explanation is, there's a Gemara in the sixth parak in Sanhedrin. It's talking about capital punishment. In other words, basically what it's talking about is, this person's already they went through the whole court case, this person is liable to capital punishment, he's going to be killed. So again, we don't have like death row, where a guy could be sitting on death row for 20 years. Because we feel perhaps the mental anguish of waiting on death row could be even worse, or just as bad as the actual...
I'm putting the magnetic lock on.
Or take a look at people have to come for mincha.
Yeah, but Alan's got a key.
Okay.
Okay, so, but don't lock the door. I'll just put the lock on.
Right. That one will be there by then, yeah. So what happened, what they did is when he used to walk out, so he was, it was like didn't take a long time. The court of law was here, the place where he was going to be killed, it was like a walking distance. So while he was walking, they used to give him a little spices to smell and a little drink, in order, because they wanted, not that a person should know what's going on, you want him to know what's going on because you want him to repent before, but you wanted to buffer, not that he shouldn't feel the pain so much, that have a little drink, to buffer it. So in fact, it reminded me when I went to Alcatraz. When I was in Alcatraz, I wasn't a prisoner, I know what you're thinking, but I was visiting Alcatraz, and I went in the summer, and they had different tours around. So, they take you through the different places. So, and I'm sure now they probably have iPads and iPads, but when I was there, they had Walkman. So you go on a tour, you put it, and they tell you to go in, they lock you in. And in fact, someone was telling me, I don't remember this part, but you had an option of going in the hole in Alcatraz, where they tell you, we're leaving it closed for 60 seconds, which probably feels 60 minutes. When you can't, that's actually like pitch dark. You can't. I don't even think I went down there. They like locking you into the jail, etc. So I remember. So one of the interviews, Alcatraz, I think in 1963 was closed down. It wasn't known for treating its prisoners well, and I think it was closed down because it didn't treat its prisoners even to their standards. So you figure, when they're interviewing the prisoners, what was the worst part of being in Alcatraz? So some, the guards were terrible, they used to beat me all the time, they did, you expect those types. But there's one thing that stuck in my mind, and this guy was saying, what the worst part of being in Alcatraz was? On a nice sunny day, a clear day, you could see the beaches of San Francisco, and you could see like the people, you could hear them, the kids running around, people playing on the sand on the beach, knowing that I'm stuck in this hole the rest of my life, and these people are having that was the part that killed me the most. So we see Judaism recognizes that sometimes the mental anguish of something could be just as bad, if not worse, than the actual punishment. That's why Chazal, rabbis, are very careful. Cover that you can't, once you're going to pass in dead, that you have to do it right away. You can't even leave them overnight. It's not fair to the person to be sitting there thinking, what's going to happen, and then being pushed off. So they point out, and we find this is true of halacha as well. Just like we have a halacha that we know there's three things. A Jew has a mitzvah to sanctify their life. Like if someone says commit adultery, worship idols, or commit murder. But bar the big three, so then one has a mitzvah to violate it, and then and then better to desecrate Shabbos so you can keep many more. So so in halacha throughout we find that on Shabbos if you're in pain, so there are different things. So it applies to psychological pain as well. In fact, let's say again, it depends on the details, but I'm just saying, let's say the wife is pregnant, or let's say, well, not even pregnant, someone's sick, they're going to the hospital even though you're not sick, but if it's going to make the patient feel better, then you're allowed to go in as well, because the fact that she's suffering from being all alone in a place is going to affect her else. So we see throughout halacha, again, it's always much harder, people can abuse, it's a mental health issue, you can always say that, but however we determine what it is, but if we assume we treat a mental health issue, this is serious as we treat physical pain. Of course, mental health issue, you might need someone who's more in the field to know exactly if the person's just saying it or actually is, but assuming the person has it, we take it very, so that's what we see here. So that's what they point out. So when this person used to go out after he was liable to the death penalty, so they gave him a drink, so to try to make, just to dull the senses a bit, so it shouldn't be as bad. So he drank on his way to Maves, to death. We drink l'chaim. So that's the contrast. L'chaim elo l'maves. We drink for life and not for death. So that's the fourth school of thought. It's contrasting going out to someone who's being killed by the courts. And the fifth school of thought is actually, I'm going there tonight to run a minyan there, to run a Shiva minyan, that the Chazal tell us one of the purposes, there are different parts to the process. When someone dies, so the relatives who are alive, they have a commandment to make sure that the person is buried appropriately and as soon as possible. So in between the death and the burial, that person has the status of an onain. That means that basically his sole focus should be on making sure that all the arrangements are taken care of. For the funeral, you have the rabbi, the eulogies, whatever you're having the Sudas Havra, whatever you're taking care of, calling the people about the funeral. So therefore one is exempt from doing commandments. Not only exempt, you can't do commandments. You can't daven, you eat food without a blessing. During this time period, it's honor to the dead. You focus on taking care of all the needs of the dead. So that's an onain. And an onain, in addition, he's prohibited in basar v'yayid. He can't have meat and wine, because meat and wine one cannot have during this time period. However, after the burial, so then obviously the burial's over, then he becomes liable, commanded in mitzvahs again, and he has to do everything. So one of the things he does is he's allowed to, he's allowed to drink wine now. So in fact, Chazal tell us one of the purposes for the creation of wine is l'nachem es ha'avot, to comfort the mourner. The purpose of creation of wine was to try to uplift the mourner, to not be, to try to get him off his sorrows. Not that he shouldn't be thinking about his loved one, but have a little drink. So therefore, so to speak, an avil drinks, unfortunately, because he lost a loved one. He's trying to keep his mind like a little, to bear the tragedy, so to speak. But we're drinking, when we say l'chaim, we're drinking in contrast to a mourner's house. So we have the 5 schools of thought. What's the contrast here? L'chaim v'lo l'mavet. So number 1 was the poison in the drinks. We hit the drinks. We're drinking for life, not for death. The second one was to show a separation between fish and meat. So we drink in between fish and meat, so to break it up. We drink l'chaim. The third one was Adam and Eve, they drank from the Garden of Eden, which was wine, and they brought death upon the world. We drink l'chaim. The fourth one is the one going to his death, the capital punishment, he's drinking on his way to death to buffer the dull the senses. We're drinking l'chaim, we're drinking for a happy occasion. And lastly, the mourner drinks in order to get the mind off it, so to speak, or not to get the mind off it, but to make it a little easier, to lighten them up a bit. And we drink l'chaim. So again, so we see the power of conscience to fully appreciate what l'chaim is. We got to know what mavis is. So therefore, when we say l'chaim, we're contrasting l'chaim. We just say l'chaim because we don't want to say, well, it's not nice to say l'chaim alola mavis. We just say l'chaim, but it's in contrast to alola mavis. In fact, interesting, there are different customs where you actually do say it. So some say you shouldn't say this l'chaim. L'chaim, the Chasim Sofer writes, if you add up the numerical value of the word l'chaim, it comes out to the same numerical value of the word custom, minhag. And since if you take the letters of custom and minhag and you move the letters around, it spells Gehenna. It spells, hell, somewhere you're going to go for punishment. So therefore, I'm not sure exactly what that means, but he says you shouldn't say l'chaim. And then he says you shouldn't say l'chaim tovim either. You shouldn't say for good life, because the numerical value of the word l'chaim tovim equals curse, klola in Hebrew. So he says what you should say is l'chaim tovim u'l'shalom. You should have a good and peaceful life. That's what he says. Either way, people have different customs what they say, but whether you say just l'chaim, l'chaim tovim, l'chaim tovim l'shalom. Interesting. When else do we have kind of like a l'chaim, a tikkun? There's a question about a yortzeit. What do you do when on the anniversary of someone's death? Is that a happy occasion or a sad occasion? So the question is yortzeit, fast or feast? So in the strict code of Jewish law, it says one should fast on a yortzeit. However, and many people do. However, there's a custom among the Hasidim, different sects, that they say no, feast. One should make a tikkun. One should have the honey cake. One should have the schnapps and make a l'chaim. And of course, we know the tension because it's true. They're both aspects. On one hand, it's mazel ra, it's not a good day, you lost your loved one. On the other hand, there's so much I can learn from my loved one, so I want to take all the lessons so you have the tension, but the Hasidic minhag in many places has taken hold, because I'm sure a lot of people would rather be drinking l'chaim than fasting. So in many places, people, after at a yortzeit, they come, and even here they come and they bring schnapps and they make a l'chaim. Strictly speaking, it's a fast, but what's the reason for the Hasidic minhag of making a l'chaim? So it's twofold. Number one is hachnosas archim. You want to be like Avram Avinu. You're inviting people to a breakfast. To the merit of inviting other people, doing the mitzvah of entertaining guests, that will give a merit to the one whose yortzeit it's for, whoever it is. And secondly, they say that they're going to make brachas. So all the brachas people make, all the blessings you make, when you're eating, that will be in the merit of so those two things give a merit to the person who passed. So of course one could say, you're right, make a breakfast, but you don't have to eat. You make a breakfast for everyone else, so therefore you can fulfill entertaining the guests, and they can drink l'chaim, and you don't. So either way, so again, the strict halacha is you fast on a yortzeit, but many eat and drink on a yortzeit. In fact, Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, who obviously you'll hear in a second, was not a fan of eating on a yortzeit. He said, where did it come from, this custom of people you're supposed to fast, why are people eating? He says, because on Erev Pesach, the day before Passover, there's a custom of firstborns that they don't eat. However, most firstborns I know usually do eat, because what they do is you go to synagogue, and what they do is they finish a certain tractate that make they finish a certain part of studying, and then they make a party afterwards. So since it's only a custom to fast on that day, and it's a mitzvah to join in the celebration, so that's the custom all over. You get someone to finish a tractate, you join in the joy, therefore you can eat breakfast. So that's what I do. Firstborn, that's why my first year when I came here, I was just like, where I was from New York, I never, you didn't get any more people in Shul Erev Pesach than you did any other day. But I couldn't believe it. I was here I don't know if it was my first year, one time I was here Erev Pesach, and all of us, like I'm wondering, I got to the woodwork, these people I haven't seen before. I was in the yeshiva, I didn't really know that many people in the community anyway, and I'm saying wow, what's that? And then it's so different. I'm not mocking it. Any day they come is good. But I guess, people take on different things. I guess that was clearly a tradition in the home, and just like many people come for Yisker, coming for this fast was obviously a big thing to them, and they use, I barely see them Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, but for coming in on a custom not to eat on Erev Pesach, people, we all do things by rote, and we all have our inconsistencies. But either way, it was just so he says like this. So he says it's a custom that you finish a certain amount of learning and then you eat. So he says that was the original custom on your sites. People did the same thing. They finished a certain tractate, they made a siyum, and then they had a meal afterwards. Today, they drop the learning and just do the eating. So he's making fun of the practice today. He's saying but if you do so I guess if you do on a yard side, so many people is on a shoshim or afterwards, they go ahead and they I guess people have a meal afterwards. They have a meal after the yard side again, but different practices. So the Hasidic influence impact many people even outside. So that's the custom of some do it on, strictly speaking, you're supposed to fast on a yard site, but many have the custom of making l'chaim on a yard site based on the Hasidic practice. So that's how we began. That this coming week, tomorrow night, the next night, Wednesday night, is we're going to be observing Yom HaZikaron, and the next day we're going to be celebrating Israel Independence Day. And it's all about the power of contrast, that to fully appreciate the gift of Eretz Yisrael, the gift of the land of Israel, you have to fully appreciate on all the Jewish soldiers, the Jewish men, women, children who have given up their life, who continue to sacrifice and give up their life for the land of Israel. We first have to realize how much the Jews over hundreds and thousands of years have sacrificed, and then maybe we can get a little appreciation of what it is, to what the gift that we have. We're fortunate in our generation, we don't know why, but we're fortunate to have the gift of Eretz Yisrael, and appreciating, as always, the point is always to appreciating the gift that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you. Whatever religious significance you want to give to it, whether you realize it's the gift of God minimally, or you think it's the beginning of the messianic time, whatever your theology might be, that's a separate discussion. But at least recognize that when miracles happen, and it's a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and like any other gift, the trick is we try to appreciate any gift that anyone gives is certainly a gift that that God has given, especially after all these hundreds of years that we went without having Eretz Yisrael. So now we have a Yom HaZikaron, so we could try to fully appreciate Israel Independence Day.